Hi, this is Rick. We're going to now take the algorithm workbench problem number 1, and we're going to work it through in FSC. I keep saying that wrong. In SFC, so that we can demonstrate how to apply the material from Chapter 5. So I'm going to read it first. It says, design a while loop. There's a big clue that lets the user enter a number. The number should be multiplied by 10. Okay, there's our process. And the result stored in a variable named product. So it looks like we're going to have two numbers, or two variables, a number and a product. The loop should iterate as long as product contains a value less than 100. There's my condition. Okay, can you read that? The loop should iterate, that means continue, as long as the product contains a value less than 100. That's going to be my condition. So I'm going to start off by going down to the process. We're going to write the process first, and then we'll go back and declare variables. So here's my process. I'm going to bring that over here. And we're going to use a while do loop. And a while do loop is a test at the top, also called a while do. Yoo-hoo! So we got that one. So we'll click there and click OK. And now we've got some variables that we need to put in. The condition we read in the last line, it says the loop should iterate as long as product, so I'm going to put product, is less than 100. All right? And by the way, of these 4 choices, you're going to select this one all the time. The top one on the right, that's going to be your choice every single time in this class. Okay? So I'm going to click OK, and there it is. That's my loop. Wow, that's fairly easy. Now all I've got to do is figure out what goes inside that loop. So we would read this while product is less than 100. And what does it want us to do? That lets the user enter a number. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. And I'm going to say, OK, that's going to be an IO, right? So I'm going to say input, output. And I'll click OK. And I'm going to say display. And we're going to display something like enter a number. All right, and I put that in quotes because that's a string that's going to appear on the screen. Click OK. And now we're going to have them input the number. So this is going to be an input output. And I'm going to say input number. Kind of generic, but that's what we want. So whatever they tap into the keyboard, and when they press enter, it's going to input it into input number. Now we're going to take this, and it looks like we're going to take the number and multiply it by 10. So this is our algorithm. Our algorithm is always a sequential process. So we're going to say that product equals number times, and that's going to be an asterisk, which is a shift 8 character, times 10. And I'll press enter. And there is our algorithm, or excuse me, there is our loop. So we're done. In fact, if we come over here and look at the pseudocode, there's our while, our condition, our do, and our end while, and everything is in there. The only thing we need to do now is to make sure that we declare our variables. So I'm going to go back up here. And by the way, did you notice that our comments are out of place in here as well? So we're going to change those. So I'm going to go back up here and declare my variables. And since declaring the variables is a sequential process, I'll just select that. And I need to declare 2 variables, an integer, product, and number. Okay, and I can put them both on the same line. In fact, let's just make this really clear. I'm going to say int number. So they're going to enter a whole number. All right. So there are variables, and we've actually created them. But our input and our output, our input and our process is out of place. So I'm going to go ahead, and here's my input, and I'm going to Control X to cut. And I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to Control V to paste. There's my input. And here's my process. It's out of place too. So I'm going to Control X to cut. And I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to Control V to paste. And there is my loop. So I've declared my variables, and I've got my labels in place. By the way, you notice there's no output? I'm not sure what we're doing here, but that's not the whole thing, I'm sure. There's got to be more to it. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you can see the entire thing. There's my entire top to bottom. And you can just scan up and down that thing and see it. There's our declare variables. And then we go on down to the bottom, and there's our loop. And that's a while do loop. Let's take a look at number 2. I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to destroy this whole thing. Doink. Okay. So, and we'll destroy this part. So we are down to just our bare bones template. The second problem in Algorithm Workbench says design a do while loop. Now, a do while loop runs once and then tests at the bottom. So this is a post test. All right. So it says design a do while loop that asks the user to enter 2 numbers. The numbers should be added and the sum displayed. Okay. So we're going to add those 2 numbers that they enter and the display. So we've got at least 3 variables there. The loop should ask the user whether he or she wishes to perform the operation again. Okay, now we've got that Boolean thing that we're going to have it equals equals because that's a comparison. If so, the loop should repeat. Otherwise, it should terminate. So let's go down and start with our process. So here's our live hotspot, and we'll bring it over here. Now, last time we did a test at the top. Now we're going to do a test at the bottom. And I'm going to click OK. And again, it wants to know the condition. And again, that condition has got to be in our problem. So it says, if so, okay, what are we going to do? What is our condition going to be? Well, it's probably going to be a variable called again and double equals. Now, it's going to be a character, so we're going to put it in quote, y. All right? And we always pick the second one right here, because that way true comes out to the right, and we're very consistent. All right, so that's our condition. So I'll click OK. And now our loop looks kind of strange, doesn't it? But because the statements are going to fall inside the loop, and our test is already at the bottom. So we just put the test at the bottom. The nice thing about that is we're going to put those statements then in the beginning part, so or in the loop part ahead of our condition. So I'm going to double click here, and let's see, we've got an IO, and I'm going to skip the prompts, skip the enter things. So I'm just going to say there's an IO, and I want to enter the expression, and I'm going to say input num1. All right, and I'm going to input num1, and press OK. And there so it's going to come down, and it's going to ask the user to input number 1. By the way, we need to input number 2, which is another IO. And so our expression will be input num2. Okay, so now we've got our input number 1 and our input number 2. Now we're going to actually declare our process, or we're going to put our process in here. That's going to be a sequential process. And let's read the problem again. It says the number should be added and the sum displayed. Okay, so we need to have a sum. So our sequential process is going to be sum equals num1, and I'm going to use the plus sign, num2. Okay, so we're inputting the 2 numbers, and then we're getting this thing called a sum, and it wants it displayed. So now we need to show it. All right, so we're going to double click here, and we're going to do an IO, and click OK, and our little expression is going to be display sum. All right, oh, that's sum. There it goes, sum. All right. So now here's our steps. We've got almost all of them in there. We need one more. So we're going to input 1, input 2. There's our sum equals num1 plus num2. We're going to display that. But see, now we've got this condition down here, and we need to prompt the user to enter a y or not, whichever one they want to do. So we're going to double click here, and we're going to do an IO. And as I said, I'm not going to put the prompts there. All I'm going to do is say, I want you to enter a Y or nothing. All right. So what I'm going to do is say input again. Now again is a string. It's a character, but it's a string, and frankly, it's going to prompt the user to say, okay, we've done this once. Do you want to do it again? Let's just follow this. So they end up putting yes. So down here it says, is again identical to yes? If it is, then we jump right up there, and my phone just went off, and then we do it again. If they don't put a little y, then we drop out and we're done. So I'm going to go back up here to declare variables, and this should clarify any doubts that you have. What variables do we need to have in here? So I need a couple of them. So I'm going to start off with the num. So I'm going to say num, sum, and a num1, and a num2. But now I need one more. I need to have that little y down there. So I'm going to put string, ng, again, so I'll press enter, and there are my variables. Just about done, except I don't have my labels in the right spot. So I'm going to double click here, and I'm going to go down here and select comment. And my comment will be input, like so. And there's my input, and here's my processing. My processing goes here. And now I've got my output, so I'm going to put my output here. And I'm just going to copy this one. So I've got Control X to cut, and I will take my output and put it right here. Control V to paste, and I'm done. I think I'm done. Let's see. I declare my variables. There are 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I got all 4 of them. And I now prompt the user for 2 numbers. I take those 2 numbers and I add them together, and then I display the sum, and I ask the user, would you like to go again? And if again is a lowercase y, it jumps all the way back up to the top and starts all over again. If it doesn't, if it's like a no or a G, then boop, it drops through and my loop is done. And here's the pseudocode over here, and we can look at it. And here's my repeat. In other words, my do while. So I got my do, and these are all my do steps, and then I've got my while at the bottom, so it's going to loop around after it's run once. That's the big important thing. Talk to you later.